Single families versus multifamilies. That is the great debate for real estate investing. That's what we're going to talk about on today's show. Let's dive into it. Hey everyone, I'm Clayton Morris, longtime real estate investor. I've done thousands of real estate deals. I own both single families and multifamilies, and we're going to have the great debate. This is the question I probably get more than any other here on the channel. Should I buy a single? Should I invest in multifamilies? So I'm going to go through 6 different reasons why I like one, maybe a lot more than the other. If you're new to the channel, welcome. This is the channel where we really try to help you build financial intelligence. I'm going to go through these 6 points today on where I put most of my money and why I believe one is really strong versus the other. Now, I want to say right here out of the beginning, out of the gate, as we're doing today's show, when I think of single families, what I'm really saying is residential properties, okay? And what I mean by residential properties is single families, yes, that's like one house, duplexes, triplexes, and even quads, but mostly singles and duplexes. Those are still residential properties. Now, when you get into 5 units and you go up, then you're looking at commercial property. So that's really what I'm saying today is commercial properties, 5 units, 10 units, 20 units, 100-unit apartment complexes versus duplexes, single families, smaller, right? So we have a frame of reference for this discussion. So number one, the reason why I love the smaller unit properties, single families, duplexes, and so forth, number one is because they're easier to find. When you are looking for multifamilies, 10 units, 20 units, I'll talk to commercial real estate investors who, and I've had them on our show, they'll maybe do 1 deal per year. And for them, that's fine, right? That's all they really need to do that 100-unit apartment complex per year. Whereas it's much harder to find it. They'll make multiple offers, 30 offers, 50 offers, using different brokers to find commercial properties. With single families, they're all over the place. With duplexes are not as plentiful as single families, but you can find single families, duplexes all over the place. In fact, at our company, we're actually building duplexes now from the ground up. And I own a bunch of duplexes and I love them. I have about 10 duplexes in my portfolio and they're fantastic. Single families also easier to find. So just by finding properties, it's much easier to find single families. There's way more opportunity in this space to actually locate and find single families than it is multifamilies. I mean, show of hands, how many of you watching right now have really wanted to get into the multifamily space and you've just like, I don't know where to turn to find these deals. You're going on like a broker's website. You're typically going to be dealing with a real estate broker of commercial properties, and it's going to be incredibly difficult. It's very, it's contentious, right? And there's a lot of people going after those larger commercial deals. So number one on my list is it's easier to find. Drive around your neighborhood. You probably are going to find a distressed single family house in your neighborhood that needs work. It's maybe been sitting there. The grass is a little too high. Check out my video on how to find some of the cheap properties. You might want to check that video out because we show you how to find cheap off-market properties in this year. And just driving around your neighborhood, I bet you're going to be able to find a distressed single-family house. And I kind of walk you through in that video how then to go out and find the owner of that property and try to make a deal. Number 2 on my list, why I like single families, duplexes, triplexes, and quads more than the larger multifamilies is because motivated sellers are easier to find and they're different than the more institutional investors. What do I mean? Well, when you own a single family house or a duplex, chances are you are a typical homeowner that owns this particular property. And you maybe let the property run down and you just need to get out from under it. Or maybe it's an inherited property from a family member and you don't know what to do with it, so you want to get rid of it. There are motivated sellers for single family homes, just entirely different than if you've got someone that owns a 100-unit apartment complex. What do I mean? Think about this for a second. If you come across someone that owns a 100-unit apartment complex, is that just a random homeowner? Of course not. That's going to be a seasoned investor. So it's much more difficult to make deals with an investor who's seasoned, who understands the whole process, than it is for a retiring, tired landlord who owns a particular property. if you follow me in this logic, a tired landlord who has a 100-unit apartment complex has been through it, understands the game, and is not going to be as willing to take a low ball offer on that property. And that's what we find when we find a distressed property in your neighborhood that needs a lot of work. You're going to be making a low ball offer. So I know that when we go out and acquire properties, I'm making really low ball offers because I know that it needs $20,000, $30,000 worth of work. And I'm going for those types of properties. With a larger 100-unit, 200-unit apartment complex, that's an investor. Do you think that they're going to take your lowball offer? No, they're going to have their number and they're going to stick to it with their broker. And chances are you're going to have to be paying top dollar. Right now, multifamilies are trading at a really low cap rate. And so it's very difficult. We've had Ken McElroy on the show, one of the great multifamily investors. He's written the book, The ABCs of Real Estate Investing, and he is a multifamily investor. He says he sees right now the best value is in the single family home space and smaller properties, duplexes and triplexes. He said absolutely the larger multifamilies, he said, I see people selling them for like a 3% return on investment. That means that they're barely breaking even. So that's because that investor who's selling that property knows the value of that property, and they're not going to take a lowball offer. So again, I'm just saying you're dealing with different types of motivated sellers when you've got single family, duplexes, those types of owners, and you've got the larger institutional investors who have 50 units, 100 units. You're not going to have that negotiation go as easily as you might think. Number 3 on my list is that when you buy, like I do, single families, duplexes, you need fewer partners. Think about this. If you're going to buy a $30 million apartment complex, are you going to be able to do it by yourself? Probably not. You're going to have to raise money. You're going to have to go out there, take a bit of a road show and try to raise that capital. And obviously now you can get a percentage of that because you brought them the deal. There's ways to do that, of course. And Michael Blank has a great course on multifamily investing, but it's very difficult. So you're going to have to be raising a ton of money and you're going to have to rely on a lot of other people in order to make this happen. So then what percentage of the deal are you in? You don't own 100% of that. You're not going to own 100% of that apartment complex. You're going to own a portion of it. Now maybe you set up an LLC with 15 other partners or 10 other partners in order to buy that property. So you're going to have to put some things into place, raise a lot of money, and put some partnership agreements together. To me, it's very advanced. But again, when you buy single families, you're buying a duplex, you can simply make a down payment, finance it with a local bank, and you're into your first rental property. Refinance, rinse, and repeat, right? You can fix up that property, pull that money back out of it again in an infinite return, and roll it into your next property. So again, another reason why I love those smaller properties, the single families, the duplexes, triplexes, and quads. Number 4 on my list is the headaches are fewer. Without a doubt, the headaches are fewer. John Schaub wrote a great book on becoming a millionaire. I think One House at a Time, I believe was the name of the book. I forget the exact title, forgive me. But he talks about it, he's done it all, like I have. He's owned all kinds of large multifamilies and single families and duplexes. And he loves the single families and duplexes model because it's fewer headaches. And I absolutely know this to be true. Just listen to multifamily investors talk about the amount of things they have to fix on a regular basis. Now, if you've got a 100-unit apartment complex, you're going to have staff that lives in the building probably, right? A maintenance person that's there that lives in the building. You have to pay the front desk staff. You're going to have to a whole bunch of other things that are involved in your investment with a larger multifamily property. Single families, though, different ballgame, right? Fewer moving parts, the types of properties that I like to do, 1,000 square feet, no garage door openers, garbage disposals. I don't have to worry about all those moving pieces. So fewer headaches. And when you have those smaller properties, you have more space typically. Larger rooms, people tend to stay longer, which leads me to number 5 on my list, which is vacancies. There are just fewer vacancies in single family, duplexes, triplexes, and quads, especially if you get the larger bedrooms, which I like to do. So I find like with duplexes, the ones I like to look at, have larger space so that families can stay longer. I like to replicate those spaces of a single family. If you've got your own yard and your own driveway, I have, way fewer vacancies. And I will say that when you're looking at the multifamily space, you're going to see, vacancies upwards of like 20%. When the vacancies I look at, I hope to be below 5% vacancies on any of my single families, duplexes, and so forth, because people tend to stay longer. Just think about it, the mentality of living in a 100-unit apartment complex. It's more transient. They're probably there for a year, if you're lucky. You're gonna always have tenant turnover. You're gonna be constantly doing tenant turnover on that larger unit, constantly. And on a single family, I've had leases where I have 5-year leases on some of my properties, because tenants like the neighborhood, they like the school district, they have like the yard where their dog can run around, and so they tend to stay much, much longer in those properties. So you're reducing your vacancy rate by investing in residential, single family duplexes, triplexes, and quads. And number 6 on my list is the returns are much higher. Because you have less tenant turnover, because you're able to get in and get greater value with lowball offers, get and renovate these properties at a level that it provides you with a higher cash on cash return, you're gonna see a much higher return. Bottom line, again, listen to Ken McElroy, listen to other high-end real estate investors who invest only in commercial properties. They are saying right now, this year, 2019 and beyond, the number one value they're seeing in this space is single families, duplexes, residential real estate in the affordable housing space. The returns are significantly higher than you're seeing on these commercial properties, on commercial real estate. And I'm talking about rental properties where people live. We can get into owning malls and shopping centers and all of that stuff, right? But I'm talking about single families or places where people are actually living and staying a long time. So you're gonna see higher returns. I mean, look, where do you spend the most money? Tenant turnovers, okay? When you have a vacancy on the property, now you have to go back into that unit and change the carpet out, get it all cleaned up, maybe paint, fix holes in the walls, etc. That's where you end up having your highest costs. So if you can reduce that by having people stay a long time, you get that just by, by proxy, by living in these particular properties, these single families, duplexes, and so forth. So those are my 6 points. I want you to check out this video. We've got a great video, which is a behind the scenes of one of our rental property investing renovations. So it's a behind the scenes of a duplex that we renovated recently. Walk you through step by step. It shows you how ugly it is at the beginning, but you got to check out this video. And it's a 4-part series we're putting together so you can see how we took it from ugly to fully rented and now cash flowing. I think each unit is now cash flowing like $1,100 in this property. So check that out. And also be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new here. We'll see you next time, everyone.